sort of any key questions that remain open. I think there was one, I think you might have answered that, Ray. How can we easily balance being resourced and resourcing? And I think there was another question that was kind of similar to that in the chat. So I think that question is open to anybody who can answer that. Ray, Reggie, or Janet, you can answer to that. I think maybe Janet, since you spoke to the issues of resourcing, and also I think Raymond, in terms of actually trying to bring yourself to a resilient positioning, because I think that's also important in the support that you have. Yeah.
So what was the question is, how do we know if we are, I'm trying to look into the chat. What was the question, Tambo? How do we know if we're being resourced?
How do we know, how can we easily balance being resourced and resourcing? Yeah. So I think, yeah.
Okay, so it's not, I mean, first of all, if we're aware of our resources is a good start. Even that is actually a knowing. That's a knowing exercise that I've just done. But when you start to feel burnt out, then you know you're out of balance. And the key is then to take a step back and say, what do I need now to bring in more resourcing? What does that look like? So we know from our bodies if we're not well, if we're overburdened, we will know that. And maybe the question is to ask, well, what am I needing right now that is not available to me?
Yeah, Jenna, I'd say thanks very much for that meditation. It really touched me. I don't know why. I think it's when you realize that when you're out of balance and you're not in that resilient zone. So it's learning to recognize when you are in the resilient zone, where you are able to, when you're on your game. And when you're on your game, take a moment and just think to yourself, actually, this is what it feels like when I'm on top of things, when I'm on my game, when I can manage the highs and lows, so that you learn what it feels like to be like that. Because often when we get bumped up into that high zone, we don't actually realize what's going on because we're so caught up in the movie. And so by learning what it feels like to be in the resilient space, when you are bumped up, you can actually say to yourself, but wait a bit, what's going on here? I'm actually bumped up. My whole body's responding. I'm stressing out. And then just take a moment, just sit in a chair and then just imagine those resources around you, supporting you. And then your body responds, your physiologically, your nervous system responds. And then it goes, oh yeah, it's cool. The danger's over. I'm not in danger. I can relax. I'm home safe. I don't have to worry anymore. So that's basically, it's about learning when you are resilient so that you can recognize it and then learn how to bring yourself back into that resilient place. Trusting your nervous system is designed to do that. All you're doing is just supporting it. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you, Janet. Reggie, I would like to slightly impose because I've been looking at the work that ECL is doing. And Reggie, you shared at some point at the global conference, at the ECL global conference, you talked about the hidden law of relationships. And I thought that was really useful because the mapping that we did with Janet really sort of speaks to different relationships that we're needing right now. But there was something about relationships that you talked to in the programs that you have been working on. And I just thought, could you share a little bit of that? Because there was such a intimate sharing that became a web of these relationships in the work that you were doing. And I just thought it was really useful for you to share that maybe in really thinking about me here and the networks that I have in terms of my, my resource. Yeah.
Thanks, Tambu. Yeah, sorry, I had to get the sound. Janet has already actually touched on one of them, the hidden laws of relationship. There's a whole lot of them, but in ECL, there's 4 laws that we normally talk about. Janet has been dealing with the hidden law of exchange. The other laws that we talk about in ECL is the law of place. In your relationships, for instance, at home, if you're a firstborn, your place as a firstborn. In a company, for instance, I think one of the examples that Janet that she used when she was doing one of the exercises in one of the old companies is the law of time that she was talking about, where she had a whole lot of employees, and one of the guys had been in the company for many, many years. And I think we never think about honoring those who come before us. And she made them do an exercise where everyone came in front of they were placed in time when they joined the company, and showing respect to the ones before them, the ones who started long before. So that's one of the law. That's time. Belonging is the one that we seem to see quite a lot. I mean, in families, sometimes we don't feel like we belong, especially the new families that you're joining and all that. But in schools, for instance, I mean, a sense of belonging is so important for the well-being of a child within a school system. You know, they're able to perform better if they feel that they belong in the school. And I think it's the same for everyone else, even in companies. If you don't feel that you belong, your performance is not going to be so great. So yeah, those are the four laws, the four hidden laws of relationships that we talk about.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Reggie. Thank you. Raymond, did you want to add something?
No, I think Reggie covered it nicely. Yeah.
I see there's two questions. I don't know if there's some questions in the chat.
Oh, there is some more questions in the chat.
Yeah. Somebody's just asked.
A person. Oh, okay. All right. So we have a question here, and I think it's somebody working with school principals, thinking out loud. Magali says, would it be a good idea for a school principal to run such an awareness session for their teachers to help them cope with their own stress? Or is it better for such a session to be run by someone who is an expert or somebody who's used to doing it? Yeah.
You want to answer, Ray?
Yeah, so at the top of my head, I think what's the beauty about these tools is that anybody can use them. And so to be able to take your staff through that exercise, simply of saying, guys, listen, just have a conversation with the person sitting next to you about the person that makes you feel strong and resourced, the person that makes you feel at calm or a place. And then just having that conversation actually helps people get into that resilient zone. So anybody can do it. So it's basically, Janet?
I just also want to say, I'm happy we're going to, one part that I have liked about all of this is the virtual, because, if we can get to principals all over the world, never mind only in South Africa and Africa. So I know we haven't put it on somewhere on our calendar, but obviously we'll talk to partners possibility, how we can resource you, even in one session or whatever, so that you can go and do this. We would love for all of the principals to be doing that. I'm telling you, it will change the lives not only of the students, but the teachers as well. Because once a teacher's resourced and relaxed, then the children are naturally also.
Tambu, I just wanted to say as well, in one of the sessions that we had, it's such an amazing tool. And as Ray says, that anyone can use this tool or can teach once they are empowered to do so. One of the exercises we did in the school was a teacher struggling as a head of department with a lot of issues in a particular subject matter. But I think it's one of those things that we never think about. We never think about our resources on a daily basis. That within the very same school, the issues that she was struggling with are the issues that somebody else who was the head of a different department could have helped her because they were sharing exactly the same, they were experiencing the same problems. So it's such a powerful tool that that will enhance your performance. You know, as teachers, it will definitely enhance their performance, because I know in our public schools, I mean, they're sitting with classes of so many children and they're so overwhelmed. And, you know, they've got each other, they can collaborate, you know, they can support each other, you know, to perform better in the school system.
Thank you, Reggie. Thank you, Ray and Janet. Another question. So here is another question, and I think we've talked about, you know, some of the sort of being resourced and the resourcey and, you know, being resourced and resourcing others. Again, the question is coming because I think a question that Jimmy and Lizette are asking is, you know, feeling a little conflicted. So here Magali was talking to a leadership program, for example, that PFP has. And then thinking about this for Lizette and maybe Jimmy is, you're in a leadership position and you are expected to be resourcing rather than being resourced, for example, but at the same time, you are in a position where you're wearing many hats, multiple hats. You know, you're a mother, you're a teacher, you're a sister. So how do you, you know, how do you go about finding balance? How do you assist children in this case as well? So I think sort of getting the practicalities, how do you actually map it out within your own space? Yeah, I think it's open for any of the panelists to respond to.
So first of all, you could do different maps. You can have a map for when you're at school, and I think it's about being present. So when you're in the classroom as a teacher, you're leaving those other hats at home, and you're only focused on being the teacher. What are the resources you need while you're in the classroom, in that space? When you go home, you're a mom, and you've got children, husband, and that's a different resourcing. Always, though, there are certain resources that never leave you. The knowing of the parents that are behind you, you can just feel, you can actually reach out to them at any time. It's also about visualizing resources, not physically having them with you. They're always there. If you're a spiritual person and you have a daily discipline of meditation, that's going to get you through whatever day it is, whether you are in your mum hat, teacher hat, principal hat, whatever that is. You know, when you're with your friends, you've got your friend hat and you're just focusing on them and what's happening. You know, Reggie spoke earlier, it was brilliant, about Eckhart Tolle and this notion of being present. And that's really the biggest resource that anyone can have, is continually being present and ridding ourselves of any, you know, instead of coming into the class and thinking about the fight you had that morning or the exam you've got that afternoon. In that moment, we just sit and think about, or not sit, you stand, you do whatever. You're focused in your classroom or on whatever task is at hand in that moment. And that's a resource in itself. If Ray or Reggie wants to add.
Yeah, so I suppose it reminds me of a story, and maybe a story is a way of like getting. So we were working at a school in the West Rand, and there was a principal, a really amazing, dynamic principal who had such deep passion for the learners, and she was going to resign. She had enough. She couldn't do it anymore. It was just too much. And the biggest challenge she was having was from the department. The demands, the pressure, the need, the forms, the assessments, and being bullied by the department. And that was her experience. She was at the point where she said, it's time to leave. So Janet asked her, what is it? Why did you start teaching? And she said, the reason why I started teaching was that I had this teacher. She was actually a hard teacher. And she was very, very strict and very disciplined. But she had such a passion. She saw something in me that really, she recognized, she loved teaching. She loved learning. And I recognized that in her. And that's what I wanted. And that's what I took from her, this passion for teaching and for learning. And then the ugly stuff that she did, she was actually quite a cruel teacher. So this particular person was quite large. So she used to insult her often about her size. And she was able to take take from that teacher her passion for learning and teaching and leave the other stuff behind. So she took it. She took that resource. And then we said, what about the department now? And then she just had a moment, oh my goodness, the department's just like that teacher. And I can take the support that I can take from the department and all the other stuff I can leave behind. And we do this mapping exercise, but in real life. So it's almost, we gave her something. We said, okay, well, here it is. We gave her, it was a pile of books. We said, okay, this is the support from the department. Can you take it? And she took it. So it was like a physical taking. And she stayed. She was realigned. So when that question is, how do you find the balance? The balance is taking. You need to take. Take freely. It belongs to you. It's your right. You're entitled to it. So whatever the department gives, take it completely freely, without reservation and without judgment. And then leave all the other stuff behind. And then you'll be able to give to the kids and to give to who you need to give to. So that's this thing about give and take, that exchange that Reggie was talking about. So that's the balance. So hopefully that's, I don't know, that helps.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ray. I think just to really think about children, because I think that's your work is quite central to enhancing children's lives. And I think that is so powerful. And I think there's a question that has just come up here that is so relevant to respond to. And I think when we think about classrooms and thinking about this time that we have in terms of, you know, the stresses around COVID, the panic, the fear, and a question is coming to ask, how do I deal with kids who like to hug me? Not necessarily during this time, but just generally. Maybe, you know, there's some need, there's some resourcing needed for the child, but the child is coming to school and they want to hug the teacher. And you know, maybe the teacher is uncomfortable. How do we deal with that?
So just as you said it, that's going to be a bit interesting. There's something about being able to transfer the hugs to the child from yourself. So maybe, especially if the children are at that stage, they want hugs, maybe there's an object that you can say to the child, okay, as a teacher, I've given the hug to the little object, whether it's a teddy or a doll, and now you can take that hug and you can hold the hug. So that's just off the top of my head. But I'm sure there's other ideas as well. It just hit me. So, and there's another, it's about connecting. So it's about taking a ribbon and letting the teacher hold the ribbon and giving the other side of the ribbon to the child and say, okay, here's your 2 meters. And even having a network of ribbons around the class where the children can connect with each other and maintain social distance. So they're feeling that sense of belonging, that sense of connection. And then say, okay, now let's finish, we'll carry on. And then obviously the whole ritual of making sure the ribbons are clean before you use them again. So that's also a challenge. These are challenges but it brings opportunities for creativity. Yeah. Okay.
I think one of the other things that what we use as resourcing is tell the children to bring a photograph of the person that they feel closest to and they put it on their desk. So always reminded, you know, that person is with them. They carry them somehow to the school. So that also works very well. And one of the other things, I mean, there's so many, I mean, Ray, I think that this is for me a calling here to bring all these resources to everyone somehow and hold a separate webinar or something. We can talk to partners with possibility, but how do we, just about resourcing. I would love, you know, when I hear that whoever that was who said, you know, how do we give this to our teachers? That's all we want to do. So we'll be so happy to engage you with these resources.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Reggie. I think it's speaking to a safety net. You know, when we're talking about children right now and everything that is happening, and maybe the lack of understanding to really grapple with what's happening around the world, I think there is even a more need for resourcing. And, you know, you are talking to something that is really interesting in terms of thinking of children and how can they hold on to something that brings them safety, that brings them comfort, that brings them love, in this kind of time. And Janet, maybe that's a discussion for another time. That would be absolutely fantastic. I'm sure PFP would be interested to just pick that up. I wanted to just maybe just round off and then just sort of think about sort of some of the takeaways that have come out of here, and then just so that we are thinking through this time and holding on to the resources that we got this afternoon on this webinar. And things that are coming out at me are just really thinking about how do we face stressful times, and we have been given the tools. Reggie spoke to how we need to be in the now. We are here. We need to accept the situations that we are in, because it will allow us to then be innovative, to be, be in the now. And the uncertainties, they are what they are, but being in your situation and being able to open your heart, be willing, all these really bring a connectivity to the self and then to others. And I'm just thinking, it says to us, you are not alone in the way that you're feeling, and then, being able to connect. And Janet, you spoke to, Ray, you spoke to, the inner resources, and then the external resources, which Janet spoke to. The low zone, the high zone, and we've been going through that over the last couple of weeks, and just really trying to find, if I understand who I am and what the situations are around me, how do I deal with that? The resilience that is in your DNA, the resilience that is within your nerves, to just really say, I'm capable. How do I really find a space for that? And Janet, you gave us so much of the resources that really, this whole combo speaks to you being central. How do you get out of this? How do you see your future? How do you push forward? But also looking at all the resources around you, and also understanding, what do I need now? Who do I need to be providing this support to? So I think this has been absolutely an insightful webinar. It has allowed us to really be able to not feel helpless, but I think it's brought us to a process where making changes, bringing people together and sharing these ideas to just really find a way for us to cope. And I think we are being even more creative, because what we're finding in this webinar, most people have been saying, wow, how insightful. This has been absolutely fantastic for us to have. And it's such a trying time. I think this was such a well-timed webinar. Thank you very much to Reggie. Thank you very much, Raymond. Janet, thank you very much. And most importantly, would like to thank our sponsor, Helen Brandt, from my school, My Village, My Planet. We thank you very much for this webinar. Opportunity to have had this, and if you have any other questions, we'll value your feedback in however way, and that would be really great to hear from you.
Just quickly want to say, I just want to really honor PFP, because of the amazing work that you do, bringing these communities together, teacher school, it's invaluable, really. Thank you. Thank you for having us on.
Thank you. Thanks, Tamara.
Thank you, everybody.
And I would like to also just let you know our next webinar. If you can help me with the PowerPoint. Most of all, thank you for joining us today. And our next School Leadership Forum will be on the 16th of July, 2020. And our topic is Trauma-Informed Schools.